and his concern was that we'd ever get back to it, because it's like, man, 2 years is a long time. And, are people moving on from the overall idea? I wonder, like, when they do have it next year, what's it going to look like?
Yeah, well, there are people I know of, and you'll know from your Pipe Major experience, there's always people in bands that are of an age where they're close to making this their last season, but maybe next year or the year after. They're in that kind of end game zone where they're planning an exit at some point, an appropriate point. And that happens when you win the World sometimes. That if you win the World Pipe Band Championship, there's always 3 or 4 people decide at that point it's time to retire.
Yeah.
So there is a group in that kind of zone, and that certainly will happen because just now, when the 2 years shutdown, if people were thinking of retiring within 2 or 3 years, this is the big opportunity to not bother coming back,
right,
and doing all the work. So that alone will lose quite a lot of numbers, I think, in bands.
Yeah.
And you'll get the ones who have found other things to do and think, you know what, I didn't miss it that much. I've managed to cope, so I'm going to just do something else. And I hope I'm wrong with that, but there's going to be an element of that. But on the same token, in the shop, we make a lot of kilts for a lot of the Grade 1 bands. And one of the big bands, Bog and Bathgate, actually, there was a youngster came in to get his band kilt sorted. He had to get a new kilt, and and his mum was there, and he's playing in a juvenile band. And I says, well, how are you coping with the season not going ahead? And she said, oh, he's really gutted because this year he was going to get a trial for the Grade 1 band, and there was a chance that he would get playing, and he feels now that might not happen, and he's lost it. And I says, well, I would say there's a even better chance now, because you'll find, I think, there will be a cull at the older end, and they'll be looking for fresh faces to come through when they re-establish again. I say, so if I was you, I would practice as hard as I can, because they're going to be trying to find youngsters to come in and fill the slots for the guys that went out the door. So the bonus is for the young ones. And I think there's far more good players around now than there ever was,
Yeah. I'm just trying to I'm trying to predict the future, but, so, okay, well, it'll be 2022 Worlds, and then will overseas bands come?
Yeah.
Will they come? I don't know.
Yeah, you may get 1 or 2,
but that's, so I don't know. I'd certainly like to come and, play with Inverary if there's going to be a thing, but I'm just one guy. But if you're going to bring a whole band over, there's going to be difficulty with vaccines and who's vaccinated and who's not, and whether or not there's new strains and all that stuff. And then, piping live and the Worlds isn't so bad, but it could be if it rains, everybody is basically hugging each other inside a tent all day. But then piping live is all tight spaces, so the whole thing will have to be rethought out. And then if you're thinking of investing a large amount of money to come over, I think you're still hedging your bets and maybe waiting yet another year.
And it's probably a much bigger investment than it was before, because there's going to be vaccinations and certification to travel. And
flights will be scarce. At that
and
point.
More expensive, probably.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Supply of flights will be less, so prices will be higher to even get there.
Yeah, so there's no question about it. I can see there being a lower entry, but I don't think that's a reason for not starting it up.
Right.
But I don't buy into this thing that I'm hearing on the internet where they're saying we can't just restart again. The bands need 2-3 months to get going, and that. I don't think that's the case at the top end, and I don't think it's the case at the young end, at the novice and the juvenile.
It's not how it works.
No, these bands could be ready in 3 or 4 days. All they need to do is get the pipes going, and especially the calibre of player that are in the Grade 1 and the juvenile and the novice as well. I mean, it wouldn't take long. A week or 2 would get these guys back on the floor again. Now, I know it's maybe not going to be as polished,
right,
and as fluent as it might be if they had been running constantly. I get that. But, in some ways it might be even better, because everybody will try really hard. it's like when you're pipe major in a band and you've played a March to Spain reel for the last 20 years, and you bring out a new one, and you make the assumption, or everybody in the band has the assumption that the old one is stronger, and sometimes it's not the new one because everybody applies themselves.
Right.
It's like giving it a difficult tune to the pipe chord. You think, we'll see how they got on with this. Very often they come back and they cope with it very well, and they let you down on the simple tunes.
I think you're going to see that 100% when we get back. The quality of the band that you get in a short period of time is going to surprise everyone.